let's go to a trade that didn't end up happening. Frank, a lot of the talk over the last 48 hours has been about Mitch Marner. At the end of our trade deadline show, you brought up the fact that, he was involved in something with the Carolina Hurricanes. So I guess where I want to start is, how close was this trade between the Leafs and the Canes? Like, was it simply if Marner would have said yes, the deal would have happened?
Yes, well, that's the case, but it never got really close because Marner was never willing to waive to go to the Carolina Hurricanes. I don't think he was willing to waive, period. But that was the question. That was the ask from the Carolina Hurricanes, was send us Mitch Marner and we'll send you Mikko Rantanen. Simple as that.
So what does this mean then for Marner's long-term future in Toronto? We all saw Brad Treliving's comment saying, they're kind of on the same page or whatever. Are you buying or selling what Treliving's saying?
I'm selling. For one, here's, I brought this up last summer, and this was the consistent story that I told all summer long. You'll remember this because we had a million conversations about it. I said, if the Toronto Maple Leafs can find a trade that they like, then they will go to Mitch Marner and ask him if he's willing to waive. At no point during the offseason did Toronto get to a spot where they felt like they could make their team better via trade, so they never asked. And the whole time people are saying, Frank, you're an idiot. No chance they're going to trade Marner. You're making it up. It's all BS. Well, they finally got to a trade now that they thought would improve their team, bringing in Mikko Rantanen. And so they asked, and they asked multiple times. And by the way, Carolina called to ask about Marner before trading for Rantanen to begin with in January. So Mitch Marner, the Toronto Maple Leafs are willing to make things happen. They have to, I think, from a stylistic perspective, which is also then bringing us to the second part of this conversation, which is, what does this mean for the future? You have two sides that are now publicly saying the same thing. You've got Mitch Marner saying, I would like to be a long-term Toronto Maple Leaf. I want to play for this team. And then you've got Brad Treliving over here saying, well, yeah, we want nothing more than Mitch Marner to be here for the long term. Okay, so if both those things are true, why are we not finding some deal to meet in the middle on? Is it really possible that the ask from the Marner camp is so outlandish that the Leafs can't wrap their brains around it? I can't imagine that there isn't common ground to find. So why isn't this getting done if that's the case? The only thing that I can come back to is the Toronto Maple Leafs want to hold the right to do things in a different direction or go in a different direction if they don't have playoff success again. They're going to have to do this year after year, banging your head against a cinder block wall. I don't know how many years we can say, oh, things are finally going to be different. And then they bring back the same team again to then not have any playoff success. So then people say, well, why is it that the Leafs would want to do that? Because they've got such a good player here. And obviously he's had a monster season. Well, because they haven't come more than 25% of the way to winning a Stanley Cup. That's the answer. So you need a different fit. You need a different style, whether that was with Rantanen and Marner, whether it was just with Rantanen, whatever the case may be. I think everyone recognized here that there was an opportunity to do something differently.
Selfishly, I love that we're getting a little bit of drama around this, because with Rantanen extended, I want free agency to have a little bit of juice behind it, and Marner being an unrestricted free agent at the age of 27 would certainly do that. Let's go to let's go to the big trade that did happen, Frank. It snuck in right at the buzzer, but Brad Marchand doesn't just get dealt from the Boston Bruins. He goes to a division rival in the Florida Panthers. Marchand coming out today saying, there's no ill will towards Bruins management, but maybe take us behind what led to these two sides breaking up here. Was it Boston pushing, saying, hey, we got to get something for you? Or was it Marchand saying, I want to keep winning, and if that's not the priority here, I want to go somewhere else?
I think it's probably somewhere in the middle. The real breakdown here was in talks for an extension. Talking about a 3-year deal, the Bruins were just not willing to pay a number that the Marchand camp felt like was in range of market value. And so they end up in a spot where I think Boston also went to Brad Marchand and said, hey, look, you've got an opportunity to go somewhere if you want to win. And at the same time, we're going in a different direction as an organization. We've traded Brandon Carlo. We've traded Charlie Coyle. We've traded Trent Frederick. We've traded Justin Brazeau. A lot of guys out the door. You would be essentially a quarter of the team, plus being the heartbeat of the team. They decided to change things up. And I don't think you can call it a full rebuild, because any team that has a starting point of one of the best wingers in the game and David Pasternak, one of the best defensemen in the game and Charlie McAvoy, and one of the best goalies in the game and Jeremy Swayman, you're never really going to be truly rebuilding, but retooling most specifically. And so the other part that the Bruins were asking themselves is, if we're going through this retool process, as valuable as Brad Marchand is to us, at age 37 and beyond, signing him to a multi-year deal, how does he fit with what we're trying to turn the page on moving forward? And what's the limit that we're willing to pay? I think in the end, they didn't really get close. And that leads to the conversation of, do you want to kind of stay here and obviously he's hurt and play it out? Or would you like to go somewhere and have a chance to win? His choice was Florida. And that didn't leave them with much leverage to extract a return from the Panthers. It's a conditional second, which becomes a first-round pick in 2028, as far away as that sounds. It was like another planet from now. And he has to play 50% of the games, and the Panthers must win at least 2 rounds so they have to get to the conference final, or it doesn't become a first. So not a ton of leverage for the Bruins, but they send him to a place that he wanted to go to, and they make good on that. And I just think in the end, the most surprising part to me is not just that Brad Marchand is standing at a podium today wearing another team's colors, as weird as that looked. It was also just that there wasn't common ground to find, that you would think that the gap wouldn't be that big that you couldn't find a way to bridge it. And that part is surprising to me.
Yeah. So I guess a couple of things that Bruins fans are wondering as they wake up here on Monday, March 10th. One, do you think there's any world where he's back there in the summer? And I guess 2, did the Bruins maybe make a mistake not opening up the market for him earlier? Or was that market open and it's just, the return is what the return is? And it is underwhelming, I think, just because they respected Marchand saying, I want to go to Florida.
Yeah, I think the return's underwhelming because they had the ability to trade him to 24 other teams. So by virtue of his contract, I mean, they could have sent him anywhere, but they wanted to honor his wishes. So that's why the return's underwhelming. But at the same time, rather than, and I know we say all the time, the job isn't to win press conferences here. And maybe he just said, look, please do whatever you can to trade me. We don't know the full details of the discussion. And perhaps that's why there's no ill will with management, because he got to where he wanted to get to. But I would have just tried to keep Brad Marchand and work through it in the summer and see if you can find a place to get there, because I think he means that much to the team. And I just think it's going to be that much harder for that team to get to a competitive place in the relatively near future without someone like him driving the bus. So I understand how everyone feels. Not a great place to for Marchand probably to feel, although he's got excitement now, but closing the door on a chapter like that, as long as it was. And I think Don Sweeney really hit it on the head when he explained his tenure. I mean, this is a guy that was a bottom 6 rat, so to speak, a pain in the ass to play against. And he became a bona fide superstar in the NHL with his play, hard work, maturity, evolved into a leader, all those things. I can't say enough good things about Brad Marchand and how different his career is now compared to the guy that was repeatedly getting suspended and was nothing more than someone who licked someone on the face.
He did not have his first point per game season in the NHL, just to back up your point, until his 8th year in the league. And then he did it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 consecutive seasons. So from years 8 to 14, he was a point per game guy. It's a pretty cool stat.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe button.